Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Today I'm joined by Borenstein, founder of the Borenstein Group and author Don't Believe the Hype. Gal works with healthcare organizations to help them build their brand and patient trust in an increasingly digital world where patient perception often begins long before the first appointment. In today's environment, a practice's online presence can either reinforce confidence or quietly undermine it. In this episode, we're talking about what digital trust really means, how it's evolving, and what orthodontic practices can do to strengthen it. So let's get started. And now, a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Want a cleaner workflow for orthodontic cases? Meet Clarity Solutions from Solventum, formerly 3M Healthcare. The Clarity portal puts aligners, digital bonding, and retainers in a single streamlined platform. One workflow, fewer handoffs, and more control for planning through retention. Simplify your next case. Reach out to your local Solventum sales rep today or visit us at go.solventum.com/clarity. Again, that is go.solventum.com/clarity to learn more. Hey docs, if your new patient follow-up depends on someone remembering, it's leaking revenue. Greyfinch automates new patient follow-up, texts and emails go out automatically, and your treatment coordinator just checks their tasks list to see what needs a quick call or a more personalized message. That is one of the many reasons I recommend everyone take a look at Greyfinch. It isn't just a follow-up tool, it's a complete practice management software built to help you grow and scale. Stop leaking revenue and get $500 off your startup fee with the Jill Allen special at greyfinch.com/Jill Allen. Gal, I am so excited to have you on Hey Docs. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So for us to get started here on Hey Docs, one of the things that I really like to do when I have new guests on is to have them just share a little bit about themselves, a little bit about their background. And I really want to know what led you into what you are doing now, and especially what we're going to be talking about today.
Sure. I've founded and ran and still running an advertising, branding, and public relations agency. And every year in the past 30 years, when you build a brand, you have to think about what would make it trustworthy, as well as what people think about advertising, which is how do you kind of make it stand out and get differentiated. And along those lines, trust has changed dramatically in terms of its value and how you monetize it in your industry and in any kind of sector where you're trying to really do something that is extraordinary, which is what advertising and branding is about. Like Jeff Bezos says, that I quote really often about what is branding. He said, it's what people say about you when you're not in the room. Yeah. So if you think about that as a kind of a form of what doctors and physicians and orthodontists have to deal with, is it's about what people say about you when you're not in the room. Mm-hmm. And what I learned over the past 30 years and doing it now, the trust has changed. And where it changed dramatically is in the form of social proof and in the source of where do you decide, where do you go, and how do you keep your patients, for that matter, which could be applied to also the business community in general. Simply put, before COVID, people had an opportunity to really meet their counterpart and really kind of have a conversation. There's the smile when you go into the office. There's hopefully a smiling reception. They have your documents ready. And for example, they'll give you 6 pages to fill out that already exist in the system, right? Yeah. For me, that's all the annoying stuff that makes me not go back to someone. But what changed dramatically is that kind of customer experience that we all try to live in has changed dramatically when COVID happened. And suddenly there was a period of time where you wouldn't go to an orthodontist or a dentist or any allied profession. And when you decided to pick one, suddenly it was picking a new dentist because some dentists were closed. So where did you go in that environment? And the answer was people went online. And that's kind of where I saw the change in multiple industries where digital trust has become more important than what you actually do in the office once you put somebody in a chair and talk about the medical diagnosis or the cavities that you have. Whichever you pick, it's not the same anymore. And I see multiple companies in multiple industries where they really have not organized themselves to that new digital world that is driven now also by AI, by competitors that are doing things that are shady. And if you think about reviews, if you think about fake reviews, if you think about what do you show on your website and what's the new customer experience that you need to design or redesign, that's really how you monetize trust today. And those who don't are going to go out of business or get acquired by somebody smarter that actually does that for a living.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're so right on track with this. And definitely, as I help practices navigate their way through COVID and even the last 6 years of just the change that we've seen in how patients interact in and with our practices. I've been doing in our industry over 30 years now, and it is crazy. I can remember the day where we were interacting with our patients through that first line of trust was how big was our ad in the yellow pages, or were we able to get out and have a mailer that got into their mailbox or whatnot. And that was that component, or a dentist that referred a patient over to our orthodontic practice, and that solid handoff of professional to professional. Now, as you and I both know, when practices are looking at, that social proofing and what does that mean to me in my practice, we've got all of these different avenues, from our Google business page and the review platform that comes along with that, to our websites and how well they're built. And nowadays the new hot shiny new penny is it AI optimized, and all of these different things that I think for doctors, it's hard to keep up with, but for consumers, this is their first impression. And they are putting a lot of, and I love what you said, trust in our digital footprint and in our digital presence. And so I'm wondering if you can, I know you kind of gave us a high level on that intro, which was great, but if you can talk to us a little bit about what as the importance of really what does digital trust mean for practices, and what should they be paying attention to when they're looking at, I know none of us know the future. None of us have this crystal ball, but the impact that it's going to play even in the next 5 years on shoring that up. And I love what you said, or you're going to get left behind is really, I think, what it's going to come down to.
Yeah. And just as a kind of a humor moment is I always talked about to people about how marketing and dentistry actually relate to each other. And the metaphor I used was, I don't care if you're happy or sad, you have to go to the dentist or the orthodontist twice a year, right? Which is the model of in marketing, which is if your business is down, you need marketing. If you are growing, you need marketing. But putting that aside, what really people need to reimagine, and I'd like you to reimagine what the customer experience is and now call it the prospect experience. With your existing patients, you probably develop what you call a human-centric relationship where you know something about them and you were able to create some rapport. And it's really don't screw it up more than it is making it better with existing patients. It's very different when you go out to the Wild West, if you will, and which is Google and now every AI engine where all the SEO is being integrated. And it really started with the fact that people are looking at Google reviews and other review sites to get a sense whether this is a real choice, whether it's a trusted choice, whether other people make choices that are against what it says. And typically there's a disgruntled person that put something on Yelp where some people believe it and some people say there's always a clown or a crazy person
Yeah.
in the crowd, right? But
There's always one.
yeah, at least one, right? But what I found, especially in the past 2 years as I was researching for my book, Don't Believe the Hype, was that businesses don't pay attention to the fact that we have a narrative on the inside, which is what we're good at, what we're offering, and then we create a differentiation, but we don't own the narrative anymore. Chances are that the decision whether to go to your office or not is going to be dependent on what they saw as social proof points about your business. And think about it starting by reading reviews and then going through the process of going to the website and just from personal experience, having some offices where you're trying to schedule an appointment, and then in the monetization of trust in the mind of the proprietors, you get the opposite, which is you set up an appointment and then you get 6 confirmations in 6 different ways: phone calls, emails, text, 2 hours before, another text, which I'm sure is a business practice to make sure that you're setting up your professional time accordingly. But if you basically get a person to be annoyed, you're not going to get them at the door. And even if you set up the appointment, you're already coming with an attitude that is human centric because we all have emotions. Another example is visiting a website of somebody who has a picture from 1967 and expecting a Gen Z to look at it and say, that might be a dentist that I want to visit. These are all kind of visual cues. But what happens is now we're in a world where all these decisions are being made without us controlling. The narrative is being controlled by social media. And in that world, I can tell you that there's so much fraud that you need to pay attention to and do social listening if you're a professional and you're trying to grow your practice. For example, people are being told, physicians and doctors and practitioners are being told that it's great to have a lot of reviews on Google. But when you create reviews by giving them a card, for example, and scan the QR code, and suddenly a practice that should be a family practice that sees maybe hundreds of people has 1,500 stars and all 5 stars. It achieves the opposite. You look at it and you say, I'm not sure that the Google reviews are even real. And that takes away from the authenticity that you're trying to create with your audience. So the answer to, I need to get as many Google reviews as I can in order to grow my practice, that's not the answer. The answer is we're looking for quality, not quantity. And then conversely, when you see bad reviews about your practice, you need to be on top of the game and make sure that you have a way to really communicate with your audience and do respond and say, today was a bad day, or there was an electric power outage, or whatever the situation was, we were understaffed and we apologize for it. Be authentic and respond to reviews that are true. Obviously, the next part of it is it's a wild west out there. And in the wild west, you would think that everybody follows ethics, but some don't because they want to grow the practice a lot faster. So if you just go on Google reviews and you see something odd or a period where all your reviews are negative, one after the other, Don't be surprised if it's a company that was hired as social media review generation to basically bash your practice so that the competition gets a leg up, if you will, in that prioritization of who's first and who's second. I know you're shaking your head, and I'm sure all of us are shaking our heads internally, but this is a real thing. And now a lot of these companies are actually offshore in the Philippines, in India, and they're given quotas of how well and how many of those reviews got accepted on Trustpilot, on other sites like Yelp. And you would think that social media has a way to regulate it, and it doesn't. Number one, there is no regulation, just the way Facebook doesn't have a regulation for free speech. And you see some really
Yeah.
bad things that shouldn't be seen by whether your kids or your family, or for that matter, just radicalize you to a point where it makes no sense. And what we see is that competition exists, and you sometimes throw your hand and say, what can I do? There's a lot of negative reviews. The answer to that is to come up with original ways of telling your story and your narrative. And then make sure that there is continuity of what you're telling about yourself on Google and search engines that are now connected to AI enabled questions and answers, which is really the model. Think about Google as I always call Google my librarian, that I ask a question and it brings a book to me. And sometimes the latest book is number one, which is great. But now Google has an AI agent, and it's based on questions and answers. How long do I wait when I go to this dentist, for example?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You have an opportunity to build a script and to build a narrative whereby the information really is focused on how you want to tell your story. Going back to authenticity, what is our purpose in our practice? Very often people copy somebody else's practice points and use the same exact values, whether it's innovation, thinking about the next generation of technology that we use. And there's nothing wrong with that fundamentally, because that's how you make a living. You provide premium services, and that costs more to provide it and then for patients to have it. But if you're not able to have an origin story, something that really focuses on where you come from as a person, and integrate that into a story, chances are that you're going to be looking at the perception of being a franchise. A franchise is one of the best and trends in terms of business in the practice industry. But at the same time, in a world where you have so many franchises and so many dentist operations that have 20 locations, your instinct, if you're a person that is really reviewing a new relationship, think about it as a dating app where you swipe left or you swipe right. Okay. Whatever in that snapshot, that's the 2 seconds that it takes to swipe left or swipe right. So you have to romance your new patients.
Yeah.
You have to get to a point where there is a date. And after the date, you either had a bad experience or a good experience. So think about it as the first dinner that you go out. And if you don't really think about it that way, and you think about, we need to fill out cavities today or whatever we need to do, that's not going away. And that's the kind of what you call the healing part of the brand. But now the brand has to operate outside your office, and all these digital signs that I talked about and many others, especially with AI coming on board. This is how you differentiate yourself. This is how you make sure that you're listening constantly and providing social proof in multiple ways to your audience.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And now a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Are you thinking about opening an orthodontic practice? I know, it's a big decision, but saving 25% on the ADEC equipment you need to get started, that's an easy one. Because ADEC has a special program called Smart Start, designed to help you launch your first practice. You get up to 25% off your ADEC orthodontic equipment and furniture. You also get complimentary services to help you run and grow your business. And my favorite part, access to the Smart Start pricing for 2 whole years after you open your doors. That gives you flexibility to add more chairs as your cash flow grows. It's pretty smart. As an orthodontist, you care about getting all the little details right, and ADEC really got it right with this program. So if starting off with a big savings on ADEC equipment sounds good to you, the ADEC Smart Start is definitely worth a closer look. Just follow the link in the show notes to learn more. And those are really good reminders in regard to just what we need to be thinking about. And again, when we're thinking about what does the future hold and how is our marketing going to change, I feel like it's just always there's something new we have to think about. First, it was get the reviews. And then it was, okay, now we got to remember to respond to the reviews. And now we've got to make sure that they're authentic. And all of that is true. And people can take things to extremes. Like you said, yes, of course. I, even as a consumer, if I'm looking to go somewhere and I'm like, that's really odd. They don't have a single, even 4-star review, or all of these reviews seem to have come in within a certain small segment of time or whatnot. It does make you as a consumer go, I don't know. There's just a tick on the, I don't know where my trust is at with this doctor. Or as you said, docs, I just want you to hear this. It is so important that we remember that our websites are not one and done. We have got to stay up on our websites and our pictures and the verbiage that we're using meet the times that we're at right now. And I don't know what you think, Gall, but I'm usually telling my docs, you need to be evaluating your website at least every 3 years and saying, okay, do I have updated pictures? Is my content AI optimized? Because the way we wrote websites 10 years ago is not the way we write websites now. And so we have to be constantly vigilant as far as what it means for us. And I always joke, my listeners know this. I call this the unsexy side of doing business. As business owners, this is the hard work that we have to do to keep up with what it takes to grow our business on the backside that doesn't have anything to do with our employees. It has all to do with the story that we want to tell and the relationship that we want to have on that first date when we've got digital natives that are out there looking at us and saying, is it worth me picking up the phone and making a phone call or getting on the widget and scheduling an appointment or reaching out and however I'm going to make contact?
Yes. And in fact, one of the visuals that I want everybody to think about, whether you're at age of having kids or the kids are millennials and they're already in the workplace, there's a whole generational shift in communications. Think about anybody in Gen X, I am, where there was no way to really create a relationship without having a conversation on the phone, at least before you met somebody, or you met somebody and then you created a relationship. We have a whole new generation, especially as we move to the latest in Gen Z, that never actually made a phone call. And they don't think that leaving a voicemail is a thing at all. They actually communicate via text. Yeah. And they want everything to be in text. And one can say, that's crazy. How do I run a practice where I have to respond in text? But that's really how they believe they get the information in a way that kind of makes sense. So imagine that you have a website. And my recommendation, which is really best practice now, you mentioned the 3-year, I would say it should be a year and a half just because things are changing that quickly. Even if you don't remodel, if you will, or reinvent everything, you should have short videos on your site and then put them on your social media as well. But then also relate to the fact that the new kind of buyers or the new generation of consumers and patients, is looking at a video that is 5 to 15 to 20 seconds, and you lose the attention span at that time. So it's not even the traditional corporate video where you're introducing your staff. Nobody cares. And I'm not saying it as to be facetious or to discount the fact that we're all smart and every generation is smarter than the previous generation. However, if you're looking to grow your practice and you don't recognize that, and then parlay that into the reception area, parlay that to here are 6 to 8 more forms that you have to fill, even though you've put that information on a form on the website and you provided all that stuff.
Yeah.
And a practice can check if you have your insurance in place automatically. And yes, you may have to sign some financial responsibility form and standard forms in your practice. But if you don't reduce that paperwork and your audience is less than 30, chances are that you're not only ruining the trust that maybe was created when they visited your website, it's basically ruining the whole customer experience. And they have a resentment while they're just literally walking down the hall. And then if people don't smile because they're running around, that reinforces it. And then the next thing you know, you're sitting at a chair as a patient and you're basically not sure what's going to happen next. And you have anxiety if it has a drill sound. And even then, you have an opportunity to create an experience that is better than what the other guys are doing. Are you visiting other practices? Are you learning what are their most successful elements? You can ask patients that you just signed up, where you come from. What was your last dental practice or orthodontist that you've seen? That can give you a lot of intelligence that is not confidential. It's actually, they'll volunteer it.
Yeah.
And we used to call it market research. Think about it as keeping a pulse on what is going on outside. And if a patient that just signed up comes to your office, has a good experience, and you ask, well, why did you switch from the other practice? And one way or the other, it's going to come back to the fundamentals of trust, which is you have to earn it. You have to create an environment where people are willing to accept it. And you got to live everywhere online, which is called digital footprint. So for the folks that are digital natives, I don't have to explain that as much because you're already using
Yep.
your smartphone to do everything via text. But for the rest of us, which are the majority of the population still, that might actually have the most premium services needed, if you don't ask those questions, you're not going to get them. And I don't recommend doing it via structured forms, handing a piece of paper to somebody asking, why did you switch? It should be more like a conversation that maybe your receptionist can have. That could result in creating a relationship that doesn't exist.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And I think all the things you were just talking about are these little things that we may not even think about that erode that trust that patients have. And I love the way you said it, where it's like it's just this little tick of things. It may not even be completely conscious that we're making that as a consumer, but just those little things like, gosh, I just filled out all this paperwork and I walked in the door and they're handing me a bundle more. Like, why did I just waste my time filling that out? Already that creates some friction. Or just I think your examples were really good. And I feel like for all of us and listeners, as you guys are listening to this, really be thinking about what are you doing in your practices that maybe are outdated, maybe are not keeping up with the trends and the motion and the momentum that the way patients are now interacting with us. And I just feel like that's such a trap that we get into. We've done it this way, so therefore we will continue to do it this way. And I see when I'm helping you guys and I'm working with you in practices, that can be one of the biggest reasons that we stall out on growth is because we get stuck in this old way of thinking. A patient only wants to communicate with me through a phone. The patient only wants to, they won't really fill out that paperwork, or it's too hard to transfer the digital form and print into my system. So I might as well just have them fill it out when they get here, or whatever. I've heard them all. I've heard all of the excuses.
Yeah, very quickly, just to add one more thing and I'm talking about things that I've experienced personally that made me want to switch, and applying kind of the trust framework in my book, Don't Believe the Hype, when trust is on the line. It really is even a little thing like getting an estimate for services needed where no one explains to you why you need it, or they basically say you need this and that, but they don't necessarily explain to you as what does it mean for the next longevity that you're looking for in terms of your health. And you just see a bunch of numbers. And as we know that most practitioners are dealing with insurance companies. So we all understand that there are barriers to being more friendly than we need to be. But having something that says estimate and then says, this is your deductible and this is it, instead of having a small conversation that could be had by an assistant, not necessarily the dentist, or the orthodontist, that time is valuable. Every minute that you're sitting is profit, and every minute that you're doing something else is not. You need to reconsider that and think about it as, what if you try to have a brand that shines and you were a business, any business? One of the first things that you have to do is buy or rent real estate, right? And typically, if you go to an accountant, they'll tell you that real estate, whether it's like a storefront, whatever it is that you're leasing, renting, buying, you'll find that an accountant will tell you, or your tax attorney will tell you, it's about 7% of your overall growth. And if you spend 7%, that's the right number. But real estate is not just a place where you practice. Real estate is your brand.
Yep.
So if you're trying to say we're high end or more responsive practice, and you don't really use the real estate as advertising, you'll spend more on advertising and you spend more on proving that you exist versus differentiating yourself and taking advantage that you have a most incredible presentation when people come in video, touchscreens, anything that you can do to really maybe overcome some barriers that you have. No one is perfect. No one is expected to know everything, especially with the digital footprint. Hire people that are from this generation, and they'll tell you in a second what you should or you shouldn't put on Instagram. But on the other hand, don't put stuff on Instagram that hasn't been vetted and hasn't been proven, and don't put personal things that are not really relatable or ruin the trust that people have with you and building a relationship.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So, for my docs out there who want to be more proactive, what are some, I don't know, been giving us a lot of really good advice this whole episode, but what are some practical actions or things that doctors can do right now, maybe to, if they're like, he made a good point. He's identified some things that maybe I've got some deficiencies in maybe my trust, online presence, whatever that may be. What are some suggestions you have for us?
The first and easiest thing to do, whether you're from a business background or not, is to switch the idea of a marketing plan for your practice to having two parts, inside and outside. The inside is where you scrutinize your customer experience or your patient experience once they got engaged with you, in the sense that they signed a form and there's an appointment, and what goes on in the 15 minutes or the 30 minutes or the 60 minutes of waiting and the service that you provided. And then what is their opinion before they go out the door. So, because they're not going to remember a day later or 2 days later, unless it was very painful, right? So think about it as what is the customer experience indoors? Then think about the same kind of formula, if you will, or framework, and ask, what do people do on the outside? What are other practices are doing? Now with social proof, with digital footprint, you don't exist if you don't have the digital footprint, number one. And number two, check what other people are doing well, check what people are not doing well, and then apply the latest kind of marketing innovation techniques, such as making sure that your SEO is connected to Google AI or Perplexity or any of the other places. Make sure that the Google reviews are authentic. And it's okay if somebody wrote 2-line review, and it's okay to contact them and say, thank you so much for doing this. Can you talk about your experience when you were sitting at that chair and ready for a treatment and you're very anxious, for example? It's okay to have that dialogue with people that volunteered to do a Google review. But if you think about it as inside first and then outside, what you're doing is you're integrating two worlds that unfortunately are very disconnected from each other, and create that impersonal brand that instead of monetize. So I'm not advocating that you need to basically dump what you're doing. If you're a practice that is known and has a good reputation, you have something to build upon. If you have a bad reputation, start by looking at why do I have a bad reputation, and assuming that it's not a personnel issue, create best practices that other successful practices have. And don't think that you're stealing something from them, because in the digital world, you can Google any office and see how they organize their furniture. You can see what people are saying about how many floors they have to fill. How do you get feedback? How many times should you text, in my case, to annoy me, confirmations before it becomes really, I don't have time for this, and I already texted yes. And that's an experience killer.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. This has been such great information, and I know you and I could just continue to talk, but all good things must come to an end. And so I would love it if somebody wants to learn more about you, more about the book, they want to connect with you. What's going to be the best way that they can do that?
There are two books that I wrote in the past 2 years. The first one is called Don't Believe the Hype When Trust is on the Line, which is a guide to thinking about the thing that you don't see, like the social media and social proof, and how the narrative is shifted and you don't control it. So you need to be aware of it and create an ecosystem of trust. And you can find the book on Amazon. And the second book on Amazon that I released very recently is an actual small business guide for small business owners that is called Beating Goliath with AI. AI has a lot of opportunity for you as the David of the world to beat Goliath with digital slingshots. And it's more of a practical guide. And you can, again, type my name, Gal Borenstein, or the name of the book, and you can get it on Kindle. You can get it in whatever format that you decide. If you wish to connect with me and get some insights, you can go on LinkedIn and connect with me. And for the people that are listening to your show, I'll make the commitment to respond within 2 hours to their request,
Thank you.
because that is what is needed in any service industry. And maybe it's just reinforcement of something that you knew already, maybe something that needs a second opinion, or telling what you're doing wrong from a perspective. And then obviously you need to work with your marketing consultant. You need to work with your expert advisor that typically any practice should have. So LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me, Gal Borenstein. And then you can also visit our website at borensteingroup.com.
Ah, that's wonderful. And now a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at getsmilesuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite because every smile deserves a suite of excellence. Thank you for this wonderful information. This is exactly what we need to be hearing and thinking about in our orthodontic practices. And I know that a lot of my listeners just got a lot of good pearls that they're going to be thinking about. So I'm sure they'll be reaching out to you. So, Gul, the one thing that I like to do when we finish up Hey Docs is I always like to do a little speed round. So are you ready for the speed round challenge?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. What is one business trend you think more people should be paying attention to?
AI, making sure that you're not implementing AI in the wrong places. AI is a great industrial revolution tool that increases productivity and billing, but it does not replace the human framework that you need to work at, where you have to treat people as people. And a lot of companies lost that sight or overspending on the part that has no heart and doesn't have human judgment.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. All right. What is the most unexpected lesson you've learned in your career so far?
The most unexpected was that smart people actually take criticism and constructive criticism and actually act upon them. And most people listen to the advice and it goes from one ear, and comes up from the other side of your head. And criticism is a good thing if you listen and learn how to apply it to the business problem that you're having. And hug and buy lunch or dinner to the person who actually tells you what's wrong with your practice, not the other way around.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to you because you gave me some bad things that resulted in me feeling bad. It never works.
Yeah.
You can get the wisdom from knowing what you don't know and what you're doing well and what you're not doing.
Yeah, that's great. All right, one final question. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, career advice, what would that be?
Along the line of what I just described in my previous answer, it is don't surround yourself with negative people. Negative people always going to ruin your outlook and your ability to have optimism. And when you lose optimism and belief in yourself, you are done in terms of business.
Yes.
So over 30 years of being in business as a business owner myself and serving CEOs, founders, business owners, the ones that are successful are surrounding themselves with not yes men or yes women. It's really about having a culture of communication where you can tell the truth and be positive. The people that tell you it can't be done with no kind of knowledge behind it, get rid of them. They're going to kill your spirit and your practice.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. It has been such a pleasure having you on Hey Docs today. And thank you for all the great information. This was wonderful. And we look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.